I'm going to start off. I'm going to hand over to Oonagh, and then we're going to hear from Councillor Hamilton, and then we're going to hear from Marc in quite quick succession. So panel speakers, you have 5 minutes each, and I'm going to start off by handing over to Oonagh. So Oonagh, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Robin, and good morning, everyone. I really appreciate being asked to join you for today's conversation. As Robin said, I'm Oonagh Smyth, and I'm the relatively new CEO of Cllr. I've only been in post during lockdown, and so until I get to meet people face to face, I'm calling myself new, no matter how long that lasts for. I don't have to tell anybody in this virtual room that we're in a real critical point for our sector, and as West Midlands ADASS pointed out in your think piece for this event, we need to use this window to really build on the goodwill that the general public has shown on the doorsteps during the crisis, and what started as a gesture for the NHS very quickly expanded to key workers, which include the 1.5 million people who work in social care in England. It also led to a greater focus and understanding, I think, of the contribution employers and workers made across the West Midlands. And it's that greater understanding of the workforce that we have to build as we make our case for working towards employers having the resources that they need to do the job in our sector, and people being properly recognised for the work that they do. And I think that you've argued that we need to turn that talk into action, and to do that, like as Robin said, we really need to be able to access high quality data. Skills for Care is using our data to encourage a deep understanding of the workforce now and the workforce we need for the future. And I've used a lot of that to give evidence to the Health and Social Care Select Committee, which you might have seen, and as you'd expect, that was just full of data from our adult social care data set for the workforce. And what I really wanted the key group of MPs to be aware of was two things really. Firstly, the size and structure of the sector, which isn't only a really important social asset, but also key to the economic health of the nation. We know that we're facing tough times ahead. I think everybody's expecting that. But when our sector is worth 41 billion nationally, it's going to play a key part in our recovery. And the sector is worth more than the oil and gas sector, which really surprised me in terms of the narrative around social care. And that's not only the case nationally, but very importantly, it's also key economically in the West Midlands. So most of the money that's spent in social care is spent locally with suppliers or the workforce in their communities. And so I think we need to talk more about the fact that social care is both a positive force for good for our communities, but also economically. The second thing I really wanted to get across to the committee was that we need to look at the strategic challenges that the sector is facing. We're looking at what that means for the West Midlands in a bit more detail today, but we wanted the committee to know that on any given day there's about 112,000 vacancies in social care, and based on our analysis we'll need to fill an extra 5,200 job roles by 2035. And again, no one in today's workshop will be surprised by those numbers, but I hope today we can start to think about how we link those vacancies with people who might have the right values and who might be looking for work across West Midlands. And to build on that work that we're doing, we were also part of the working group for the all-party parliamentary group on adult social care, along with employers, to build on this increased interest in our sector in Westminster. And that's been able to keep politicians informed about what's happening during the pandemic and looking forward to what our sector might look like. We gave evidence to the APPG on the rural health as part of their inquiry into social care issues, and this too obviously has implications for West Midlands, which is both an urban and a rural workforce. So I know that ADASS is making your case nationally and locally, which is having an impact, and I'm going to make a really shameless plug for everyone at this event to do whatever you can to encourage providers to both complete and use our data set. Without reliable information at every local authority area, we can't know the true picture, and we can't model the future, and we can't make really reliable decisions. And in a moment, my colleague Dave Griffiths is going to drill down into the picture here in West Midlands and give a sense of just how valuable that is. And in the meantime, I'm really looking forward to the discussion, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Oonagh. Thank you for that. So that's a great introduction from a national picture. So Councillor Hamilton, would you like to go next, please?
Yes, and good morning, Robin, and good morning, all of you that are out there. Right, a little bit about me. I'm Paulette Hamilton, and my background is health. I'm actually a nurse, and I think that is really, really important, what I'm going to say. I've been health and social care for the last 5-6 years. I've been leading it in Birmingham and actually thoroughly enjoyed it. But what it's done is it's given me an absolute passion and identity in this area, because I believe social justice needs to be followed through in this particular area, because what's happening is not right. I'm delighted to be here today, and I have said for far too long that social care is the Cinderella service, being the second cousin once removed. We constantly hear the calls for funding and additional resources to be pumped into our health service and hospitals, but social care is the forgotten area. And although it is the heart of the social fabric, supporting our most vulnerable to remain in their homes and their communities independent and enabled for as long as possible, we still do not give them the credibility social care staff deserve. Social care staff do a fantastic job in not just supporting our most vulnerable, but their families and carers too, through providing them with respite, with what can be a 24/7 job, which can be a lonely and isolating role. The statistics which you saw at the top of this, it showed that in the West Midlands, our adult social care provide over 177,000 jobs, with over 84% of those being women and 22% being from the BAME community. That says it all. We are in a perfect storm. 10 years of austerity, COVID-19 pandemic, the lack of government direction, read the social care white paper, the fact that the funding review keeps doing yearly funding and it isn't giving long-term sustainability, and the inequalities faced by our most vulnerable means social care is in crisis. Social care staff are often looked at with disdain by health professionals. In contrast, health does have a clearly identifiable career pathway. As I said earlier, people that know me know that my background is health. I went into health and I had a career pathway. We don't have the same opportunities in social care. We rely so much on low paid, unskilled, migrant female workers from across the world to address the shortfall of care workers. Workers are paid £8.40 per hour, and 24% in the West Midlands are on 0-hour contract. The lack of career development means staff cannot get out of the poverty trough and leads to inequalities, which you all know is around housing, education, and in health. The fact that our care workers during the pandemic, they were key workers who needed to work to support our most vulnerable and keep the NHS free. But large numbers of those workers were on 0-hour contracts, which meant even with severe health issues, they had to go to work, and this has to change. Finally, I wanted to highlight Brexit and that no deal negotiation, which means facing a ticking time bomb. 1 in 5 of our workers are migrants. We have an aging workforce, and unless we work and we work in a different way, and we can attract British people from Britain to do this work, and they can see this as an excellent opportunity, e.g. by us offering apprenticeships and other career choices, we are going to see a continual deterioration. The country has got to do more than just clap and cheer. It needs to act, and it needs to act now. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. And if anybody was any doubt about the urgency of the kind of issues facing social care. You've just set out so eloquently and so effectively how urgent that need is, and how we need to move on from just raising the issue to actually making decisions and making discussions and putting actions in place. So thank you very much for that. That was fantastic. And our final panel speaker to set out the introductions to the session is Marc Greenwood from Coventry. So Marc, can I hand over to you now?
Thanks, Robin. So thanks everybody for joining us today. So I'm also the chair of the West Midlands ADASS Workforce Network. So I just want to set out some of our priorities and how that aligns with some of the work that you're going to hear about today, and the support we're getting from Skills for Care to highlight some of the opportunities and gaps in our workforce across West Midlands, and how we can work together to fill some of those gaps. So within the West Midlands, we've set out 5 priority areas for ADASS. They are strategic planning of the workforce, so looking at how we make sure we've got the right resources for our long-term demand and growth, how we actually grow and develop the workforce, linking to Councillor Hamilton's points there around actually we need to make sure we can fill those vacancies within our workforce profiles with the right skills and the right people with the right values to ensure that they can actually meet the needs of the social care demand moving forward. How we actually equip our workforce. We've all heard the terrible stories of the lack of PPE available to health and social care workforce during the first wave of the pandemic. We're now into that second wave, and we need to make sure that we are equipping our workforce to meet the demands of tackling COVID, but also making sure we can support the workforce long term by equipping them with the right skills and resources. Then 2 other elements that I really want to talk to you today about, and how this links into the work that colleagues from Skills for Care and ADASS are going to talk a bit more about, is our use of digital and data. As Robin touched on at the beginning, I do have a passion around how we use digital and how we use data to transform the way that we operate. And that links in very much to social justice across the sector. For me, data and our use of data and social justice are very much foundational aspects that bind the work of ADASS and bind the work of us all together, and pull us into a direction to make sure that we can actually collaboratively work together to address some of the shortfalls within our sector. So social justice, I mean, probably Councillor Hamilton and myself are probably going to do Dave a bit of an injustice. We're probably going to do his presentation shortly, but there's some of the sort of the facts that Councillor Hamilton highlighted. 84% of our workforce are female, 22 are from BAME communities, 24% are working on 0-hour contracts. We're supporting a low-paid workforce, but one of the real bugbears of mine is when people say that it's a low-skilled workforce. These are people who are day in, day out providing vital services to the people that we care for, the people that we love, and actually it's such an undervalued workforce. It's not low-skilled. This is a real emotional skill that's needed, as well as a practical skill to deliver those day-to-day services. And actually, I think there's a need to flip that conversation and make sure there's that recognition. It touched on what Oonagh was talking about, touched on what Councillor Hamilton was talking about. We need to make sure that people recognise the contribution that the social care workforce provides. And that then enables us to actually start to build that agenda for change. And it allows us to be open and acknowledge those disparities that exist. But importantly, how we can then use that as a foundation to move forward as a social care sector and work collaboratively across all partners to enable us to do that. I think there's some really good examples within the West Midlands ADASS of work that we're already undertaking to ensure that we can address some of those social injustice angles. I would say that some of the work we're doing around addressing digital inclusion is one of those, so working with local authorities to use data and insight to help identify gaps in skills or access to digital resources to ensure everyone has the opportunity to participate in social care. So that could be something as basic as being able to make sure that people have the access to data to be able to fill in online application forms, job application forms, or actually as looking at how we ensure we equip and skill the workforce to be able to use some of the modern digital care tools that are out there that are absolutely vital to continuing to deliver modern social care services. And I think some of the data presented today will really help us to understand some of those gaps and opportunities. It will help us to target energy to shift the workforce value and recognition. It will absolutely identify for us new roles and development opportunities within the social care sector workforce that we can collaboratively work towards. And importantly, we can use the intelligence to drive genuine change. Thanks, Robin.